What's up, guys? Today we have a challenge. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be making a game in Unreal Engine in 1 hour. So I haven't started the timer yet because before that we need to select a random idea and then then we'll start up a project and start up the timer. So I have here it's a pretty small selection of ideas here. These are the game ideas that I could come up with that we might be able to get done in just 1 hour. So that'll be our challenge today. You can see we have a timer right down there. We also have the chat on screen now, a new addition. So let's go ahead and spin this wheel and see what project we're going to be making in just 1 hour. Well, I mean, it looks like it. It looks like it. Endless Runner is up, so yeah, we're gonna be making an Endless Runner, like Subway Surfers or something like that. And yeah, so let's go ahead and open up the Epic Games launcher and create a new project for ourselves. And then we'll start the timer as soon as we've got that running. Yeah, we're gonna squeeze in booting up the project time. We're gonna not count that, guys. I think an hour on stream is very short. Last week I was streaming, I got through we were doing tier lists. So I got through 2 tier lists and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do to fill the rest of the stream time. Over an hour had passed. So it was time flies on this stream. So we need all the time we can squeeze out of this. So as soon as this boots up, we'll start the timer and we'll make a plan. Now we probably also need like a sketch pad so we can draw out our ideas. Yeah, sure. Let's make it this weird. Okay, we don't want to make it that weird green color. Let's make it the theme color. I think the theme color is something like this. Yeah, that looks about right. This is the official Saber C++ theme color. You can see if you look at the little chat there, it's there as well. Okay, so Unreal Editor is booting up. See, guys, if we counted this boot time as part of it, we'd already have lost like 3-4 minutes. That's quite a substantial chunk of time. But we've got we got a new project game. Okay, so what are we making? We're making an Endless Runner, like Subway Surfers. So I'm thinking we choose, I'm thinking third person, right? Because, you know, we got a little third person character already ready to go, and then we just kind of design, a different movement system than obviously the regular movement system. Endless Runner, but that way we'll have a character, animations, that type of stuff. Okay, pressing the create button and starting the timer. There we go, 1 hour on the clock. As you can see, I've gone ahead and set the preset to C++. So it just basically just goes ahead and sets up the C++ stuff. If you do create a blueprint project in Unreal, then it'll just wait until later to do that, and then as soon as you decide to create a C++ class, then it'll go ahead and do all of the setup for C++. So I just like to do it at the beginning because pretty much every project I've worked on has ended up needing some amount of C++. So it might as well go ahead and get that stuff set up the first boot. Okay, and then it generally doesn't properly open up the solution because it hasn't necessarily created the solution for VS Code. So what you want to go to Tools, Refresh Visual Studio Code Project. It may also say Generate if it hasn't generated it yet, but just generate, refresh, whatever. Go ahead and do that. And then as soon as that's done, we can go to Tools, Open Visual Studio Code, and it'll actually open up the solution. And of course, we want to trust the authors of the workspace because otherwise it won't let you build. Which we'll probably just be building with the handy little shortcut in Unreal, but if you wanted to build through VS Code because you were having issues with Unreal, you'd obviously want to trust the authors of the workspace so you can do that. Then all of your scripts are just under source and then whatever the project name is. And then since we chose a preset, you can see we've got a couple scripts in here as well. So we've got the endless runner character.h and .cpp. Yeah, that's probably mostly what we'll be working with. And then we'll of course create some other scripts for like obstacles and stuff. So let's figure out a plan for what this is gonna look like. Here's what I'm thinking. Subway Surfers style, right? So we've got 3 lanes. And the player is here. I need a mouse. Drawing with the trackpad is an experience. Okay, so and we've got our little player character right here. We'll just leave him to that. And I'm thinking if you press wow, that's not much better. If you press D, then you'll go over into this lane, and if you press A, you'll go over into this lane. And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe you just hold A to be in this lane, and you hold the D to be in the lane all the way to the right. So yeah, you just hold A or hold D to be in one of these lanes, and otherwise you're just in the middle lane. And then obviously we have obstacles spawn in and start moving towards you. Maybe we have coins that spawn in and start moving towards you. And then we probably also have a jump, so we might have like W or space, maybe both of them. W and space could be a jump feature. So obviously right now we're just going to be prototyping it on the computer. Okay, so that's the basic game plan. So for this, we need our player character. We need the ability for the player character to switch between these positions. And then we need spawnables that we can spawn in and interact with the player character. So let's create a new level. I think it's under File, yeah, New Level, and then it'll open up this dialog, and you can pick between the different level types. So I think we want basic. Just because it's got the skybox already, we don't really need this platform here. Probably not super useful. And then, okay, so the first major decision is whether we want to use the already set up player character, or just go ahead and create our own player character for our game. Because we don't want the basic movement mechanics, whatever they are. We don't want the WASD movement. But obviously we are going to want all of the animations and stuff. So maybe, yeah, I think we should start from scratch. I think there's just going to be too much extra stuff in there if we use the default player character. So we'll start from scratch. Maybe copy some of the stuff to save time. But yeah, in general, just start from scratch on our player character. So what we want to do is we want to go to File, Tools, New C++ Class. And then we want this to be not character, because characters, the basic thing that includes the ability to walk around. Pawn is the most basic version of, like, an actor is just an object. Pawn is object that can receive input, and we want it to receive input. We don't need any walking around functionality. So we'll have this be a subclass of pawn, and we'll call it endless runner character is already taken. So we're just going to call it runner. And just click on the public one there. That just means that the .h file will be in a folder called public, and other classes will be able to access it, which we may want for interactions with obstacles. Probably not, but if you're not sure, you can leave it in public. And that way you can always move it back and forth between public and private, but I just tend to leave them in public at the start so that we can use them if needed, and then we'll only move them to private later if we don't actually need to do anything with them. So we need to get some inputs going here. And we already have some inputs set up for the endless runner character here, which is the default character that we are just walking around with. So we need to copy those input stuff over to our runner character, and the jump action's probably going to be the same. So as far as input goes, right, it may be slightly different in implementation, but we want the same input for jump, because whatever the default jump stuff is, we want that. But the move input is probably going to be a little different. We can still copy it, but we're probably going to have to edit the move action so that we don't have a forward-backward input like W and S, because we don't want that. See, let's go ahead and check that out right quick. if we go into our content browser under somewhere in here, we probably have third person input actions. And here we have the jump, the look, and the move. So these are the default input actions. Jump should be good to go, but we may want to edit well, we actually don't want to edit the actions themselves. They're probably fine, but the input mapping, so that's this main one here, input mapping context, IMC_default. This one says which buttons or joysticks or whatever correspond to the different actions. So what we're doing here is, we're saying, okay, so the jump action corresponds to space and the lower face button, which is A on an Xbox controller, and tapping, whatever. So we want to change movement to not having W or S and just having A and D. And also we want to remove up and down and just have right and left. And then I don't know if there's a way to change this because we don't want it to be a 2D axis. We want the left, left thumbstick X axis, exactly. So now it's only the side to side input, which is what we want. And then we could just trash this look input, but for now we'll leave it because we're not going to implement it anyway, and we want to save time here. So now our movement just includes A and D, and we probably want to make sure that it's actually on a 2D, not like a 2D plane, just like a 1D axis from -1 to 1 or from 0 to 1 or something like that. I think it's from -1 to 1. So if we open up input action move, we don't want it to be a 2D axis, we want it to be a 1D axis. So there we go. Now it should be on a range of -1 if we're pressing A to 1 if we're pressing D. And then we can just check that to determine which lane the player should be in, as we've designed in our very fancy diagram here. So what we're going to do, now that we have both of these input actions here, what else do we need? We probably need a camera. It's going to be a little bit of a different camera setup because obviously we don't want a boom arm that the player can move around. We just want a camera locked in place. And we want, let's go ahead and implement this move function. Copy over the header section for it, and then we'll copy over the other part for it in a minute. Also, we want to copy over the setup player input component because we're going to have to set up some of that stuff as well. And that should be everything. Oh, well, there's actually already a setup player input component, so we don't need that. Okay, so I don't think, oh, we might want the camera component as well. Just make sure we have a camera component. Keep selecting the wrong file there. Okay, so now everything that's useful from the header file of the endless runner character has been copied over to runner.h, except for the hash includes, which we might want some of, like uCamera component, uInput action, all four of these actually. Basically, you can just scan through all of the things we copied over and see if they have any of these classes in them. And if you don't know, these lines up here, what they are is we're saying, so Unreal, this file doesn't know what a uCamera component is. So what we have to do is we have to hash include some of these files like this to get that information. But we don't want to include them in the header file if we can help it, because it's not needed in the header file. It's only needed once we get to the implementation part. And if we include it in the header file, then it has to process information here instead of just processing information here. Because every time we include a file, then when we're compiling this, the compiler has to go and check that file out to find the information. So we say, hey, don't worry about this. We're going to include the file in the CPP section. And then it just is like, okay, that you're good to go. Otherwise, it would throw an error because it doesn't know what uCamera component is. But we're saying, hey, there's a class called uCamera component. We'll give you more information when you need it and not until then. So over here in the .cpp file, we actually need the implementation because we're going to be calling functions or accessing variables based on the implementation here. So in the interest of time, this is not going to help with compile time, but okay, fine. I'll delete what we don't need. Camera component we need, capsule component. See, this is why I almost want to just stick with the main character, because we need we need a lot of that, the functionality of like collisions and stuff where we might need. But we've made our decision, so let's stick with it. Currently, we don't need a lot of these, but I'm just gonna leave them in the interest of time. So let's go ahead and copy over anything else we need from the CPP file as well. So we don't have a character movement because we don't need a character movement. We're going to just be setting the position of the player basically between the 3 lanes. So we don't need the character movement component. And we don't need to set basically any of this stuff. We don't have a camera boom. We don't need to set any of this stuff. We do need to create the camera object for our camera variable. So, and this is in the constructor. So basically, when we create a blueprint of this, it's going to have already created a camera object, and we'll be able to tune the camera object to the correct position and rotation and everything like that. We don't need to attach the camera to the camera boom because there's no camera boom, and we don't need to use the pawn rotation because the pawn won't be rotating at all. The player doesn't rotate at all. They just stay, they're either here, or they're in this lane, or they're in this lane. That's it. So we're going to have a camera in addition to the player, and then what else do we need? We need to, player controller, we do need to add the mapping context. Let's go ahead and add that in the begin play function. So that's this over here. If we open up our content browser, under input, we had this input mapping context. We're going to need to add that to our player so it knows how to, where to get the inputs from. And in the tick function, is there anything we need there? Okay, it's the setup player input component. We do need to do that for the ones we have. So we do have jumping and moving. So I'll copy over everything, and then I'll delete the look because we don't actually have a look action. So under setup player input component, let's go ahead and add that. Remove the looking because we don't have a looking input action because there's no looking. So we're going to get the jumping and movement inputs and use those. Then we have, what else do we need? I think that's about it because we don't, well, we're going to need to implement the move function as well. So in terms of functions we haven't implemented yet, I think it's just the move function. So if we click on this move, well, it should give us an option to implement it, but I guess we'll manually implement it just so we can get that down. So the way you manually implement it is it has to be whatever it's returning. So in this case, it's returning void because it's not returning anything. It's just doing something. And then the name of the class, which in this case is a runner. So it's whatever the class is called with an A on the beginning because this is a subclass of actor. So an actor is anything that's actually going to be in the world. So all of those things have A as their prefix. And then we're going to do whatever the name of the function is. So in this case, it's move. And then we can actually copy the rest of this declaration so we get all the variable names right. In this case, there's just one. But then obviously we have any variables and then braces to include our code. So yeah, it's the name of the class, colon, name of the function, and everything should be just as it is here, except obviously with the implementation, and we have to specify what class it's under. So inside of this move function, what we're going to do is we're going to we probably want to check the movement vector. So we don't have a 2D movement vector, we just have a 1D movement vector. So it's going to be a float movement. So it's not a vector, it's just a float. And this is going to be, I believe, from -1 to 1, depending on if we're pressing A, it'll be -1. If we're pressing D, it'll be 1. And if we're pressing both, then they'll cancel out, so it would just be 0. Or if we're pressing neither, it would also be 0. So movement should be set equal to value.get value. The value is this variable that we're passed in here, .get, and then we have to say what type we're getting, which in this case is float. And there we go. So the input value that we're getting, we just get it as a float, and then we want to do something with it. So we're probably going to move the player to the correct lane based on input. Okay, now what we need to do in order to actually use our player, and I'm going to go ahead and start the compile here, is create a blueprint of our player so that we can actually assign things like the mesh and things like that. So let's create a new blueprint class, and we'll go to all classes so that we can base it off of our new class, which might not be here since the compile failed. But our new class is called runner, and okay, it is here, good. So we select that, And now we're going to call this BP_runner. And we need to check our log because obviously something went wrong. It looks like we forgot to, so we added a subsystem and then we added a default mapping context, but this default mapping context doesn't mean anything because we didn't create a variable to hold the default mapping context. So we need to copy this one here and put it in runner.h default mapping context. Boom. Okay, so that should resolve that error. I don't know if there are any other errors. Let's see while we compile again. Bind action. Oh, we copied and pasted and forgot to change this. So if you look under here, we're asking it to call a function a character : jump. That's fine because runner. No, that's not fine. That's not fine because we're not a subclass of character. We're a subclass of pawn because that's what we decided to do. So we need to create our own jump function because we don't have the a character's jump function because we're not a child of a character. So we're going to need to create a jump function. Void jump. I think that's all. We probably don't need any parameters for that. And then in here we'll create void a runner : jump. And then that'll be that. To do, make the player move up and then fall due to gravity. Falling due to gravity is probably already handled, but obviously we need to give the player an upward boost on the jump. And then there's also I believe we asked it to stop jumping as well, which I don't think we want. In this kind of a game, it's more just like jump. It doesn't matter how long you hold it. In the default movement, it's expecting you to hold it for a certain amount of time, and that'll make you jump more or less. But we don't need to do that. We just need a single jump, however long you hold it for. It just jumps, and we need to change this to a runner : jump. And we also need to change the movement void to a runner : move. So now it'll be jumping and moving with our own custom functions and not with any other functions, which obviously don't exist for that particular script. Okay, and we have just one little error left. Use of undeclared identifier log template character. And that's because, again, we're not a subclass of character, so we don't have this log template character, whatever this is. So we just want to say log temp, which is the default place to log. So let's go ahead and log it there, and we should be good to go. Perfect. All right, so now we can open up the blueprint for our character, which we've created. And, well, there's a little bit missing. We still need a mesh here, in addition to the camera. And we also need to adjust the camera because currently we can't actually access its properties in the inspector here on the side. So I think we need to tune some settings there. And then, yeah, we're still missing a mesh. So let's go ahead and copy over. Oh, so this actually doesn't have the mesh because the mesh is typically included in the a character, which it derives from. So if we hold down Command and click on a class name, then it'll take us to that class's file in VS Code. So we can go to a character and we can see that the mesh it uses is a uskeletal mesh component. So we can copy that, paste that in, and that'll be our character mesh. Now we also need to go into the character.cpp file so that we can get the implementation for however it sets up that thing. So let's go into character.cpp, which should be somewhere. I don't know where it is. Let's search for it. Character.cpp. It's not, it's searching through just our solution, not the engine solution, is it? Oh, wait, I think it did. Okay, there we go. It just took a little bit to index. So, wow, this is very large. So let's search for the a character : a character. We just want the, okay, it's right here. And then we just want to look for the part where we're creating the actual character mesh. Here we go. This whole section where we create the mesh, we just want to copy that over to our own thing here. And there we go. Now we should be creating a mesh, which we can then assign to the, like our default mannequin mesh to. We can also save our scenes. We haven't really done much with it yet, but obviously we want to save it somewhere. So let's just save it under content as endless. And the compile has failed. So let's see what we're missing. Just 2 errors. That's pretty good. Okay, I again forgot to check to change the class name. So under runner.cpp we have let's see what it says under here again. Line 25. Here we go. We're a character : mesh component name. We want this to be a run. Well, actually, I don't know if this is gonna work because I don't think we have. I'm not sure that we actually have that mesh component name attribute from whatever class we inherited from. So we'll see. Oh, we also accidentally included something about the capsule component. We don't want to set up an attachment to a capsule component because we don't have a capsule component. Everything else here looks pretty good. Let's compile again. Check to see if we... Yeah, there's no member named mesh component name. So we also need whatever that mesh component name thing is. So let's open up our .h file once again by holding down command and clicking on the name. It shouldn't usually take this long. There we go. Alright, so under character.h, we're looking for that name. What was it? What was it again? The mesh component name. Yeah, so I'm not sure what that is, but obviously we want to look for that mesh component name. Okay, so it's just basically a static engine API. Okay, so it's basically just a static variable that holds the name that we're going to use for this. So I guess we just copy that over, and then that'll be the name of our character, or of the specific mesh inside the character. So it'll be called, I don't know, character mesh or just mesh or something like that. And we have another error. Undefined sim. All right, so I'm just gonna take out this whole thing and just create a new f name for it. So it wants a name, so we're just gonna create a new f name and with a string of text, which the string of text would just be mesh, right? So I don't know what other system they had set up there for that, but that's what we're going to use. That should be fine. We're just gonna create a new name with the word mesh. Okay, so now we have a mesh. Let's go ahead and change some of the variables here. Skeletal mesh asset will be whatever, the mannequin or whatever. And then we can adjust the position a little bit. We need to adjust the position and rotation, and we forgot to adjust the settings on these. So under runner.h, we have these u property things before each variable, and these say what we're allowed to edit. So we want this to be edit anywhere. So we can edit that anywhere, and I think that's it. Wait, we also wanted to do that for the camera. Instead of visible anywhere, we want it to be edit anywhere. All right, now we should be able to edit all of the properties on them without any restrictions. And okay, for some reason we're having, I don't know, maybe a little glitch in the inspector because it's for some reason not showing up in the inspector. We might have to reboot the engine for that. But I'm just gonna go ahead and position this guy like this. We'll add animations later. And then we want to move the camera to a reasonable position and rotation to be looking at our character. That looks pretty good. So then let's make this character the default character for our new scene. And we have our player start here. Let's change this big structure to maybe be a little more reasonable, since we're doing a endless runner. We have a little line for him to run across. It's not actually going to do anything because he doesn't really have any collision at the moment, but that'll be what he's running on, visually speaking. So then if we go to the world at the top here, this is the actual map. We double click on that, it'll open up the world settings tab. And we want to change the selected game mode to a new game mode. So we're going to need to create a new game mode override, unless one of these is, yeah, none of these are blueprints. So what we need to do is we need to create a new blueprint class, and we need to derive from game mode base there, and we'll just call it BP underscore game mode. And we'll go into here, change the BP underscore game mode, and we can change all of these settings right here. So we'll change the main character to be runner, and then when we play the game, we'll go ahead and spawn in as the runner. So if we press F8, we can actually break free from our character and see like what's going on here. And what we can see is the camera position is not suitable. It is very, very high up. I guess we need to lower it down a little bit. And we don't want to do that while we're in play mode. We want to do that outside of that. Try it again. It's a little bit better. I don't know why it's so high up. It doesn't seem like it would be that high up. Yeah, that's kind of odd. Let's just move it really low and see what happens. Okay, so maybe I'm just not understanding exactly what the camera view looks like, but we have something that's passable for now. We can see our little player here, and now we need to implement the A and D keys being able to swap between the lanes, and then obviously have him actually move forward and obstacle spawn and whatnot. And we're about halfway through our time, so we need to rush a little bit here so we can get all of that implemented. Okay, so in our move function, we need to implement our character switching between the 3 lanes based on what the currently pressed input is. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 3 empty objects, and then each of those will position in the blueprint to be a different lane, and they'll be inside of our player character. So we can just snap his position to the position of the left object, the middle object, or the right object. Or actually, to make it simpler and faster, we could just have them be, we could just have one position and then just offset to the right or to the left by like 100 or 1,000 or whatever makes sense. So yeah, let's do that. Let's create I believe it's a uScene component pointer that will be called middle lane. And it looks like the convention here is camel case, but starting with an uppercase letter. So middle lane. And we can just copy one of these. I'm going to change the category to probably gameplay. I don't know. And then, yeah, editing our blueprint read only. All of that looks good. And then in here, we need to add, like, just create the default sub-object, just like we do here with the camera for that scene component. So the scene component is going to be, what do we call it again? Middle lane. Middle lane equals create default subobject scene component, and it'll be called middle lane. That should give us a middle lane object which we can position in place. I'm also going to probably parent. Oh, well, we could in the code parent the camera to the mesh if we wanted to move around with that. Okay, so now we have our middle lane object, and as you can see, it's positioned right there. So then we also need to create a variable. We can copy all of this. Oh, we need to change the comment there. The comments also show up as tooltips. If you're in the blueprint and you hover over one of the things, then it'll show whatever this comment on the line directly above is. So obviously we want that to be correct, so it's clear what's going on. Middle lane object. Object for positioning the player. And down here we're going to create the offset of the left and right lanes from the middle lane, and this will just be a float, and we'll call it lane offset, and we'll set it equal to, I don't know, maybe 500 to start off with. and that'll obviously be editable. So then what we want to do here is we want to say if movement is equal to 1, we want to, and well, if we're including controller, keep in mind it's going to be a soft range. So if movement is greater than or equal to 0.9, we want to say, we want to set the position of the player. So we're going to say mesh. And then since this is a pointer, we're going to use an arrow. And we're going to say set absolute position, I think. Set absolute location, I believe it is. And then we need to pass in an F vector for the position. But this is just going to be the position of the middle lane. Middle lane, and this is again a pointer, get abs, I think, I'm not sure if this is correct, but get absolute location, and then we're going to add to that another little F vector, and we're going to say lane offset on the x-axis, so it'll move lane offset on the x-axis, and then it won't move any on the y or z-axis. So I know z is up. I'm not sure if y is, which one of y or x is forward and which one is right left, but obviously we can just fix this if it's wrong. So then we'll say else if movement is less than or equal to minus 0.9, and then copy in this line. We're simply going to set this to the middle lane plus negative lane offset. And then otherwise, if it's not at the extreme, at either extreme end, but it's presumably somewhere around 0 or on a controller, just anywhere except for the extreme ends, we'll just set this to the actual position of our little scene component. So now when we hold down D, we should move to the right, and when we hold down A, we should move to the left, all based on that one lane component object and our offset variable. So we can change basically how wide the lanes are. Hello. We can change basically how wide the lanes are using our offset variable. And I think, all right, so yeah, I was wrong about the set absolute location function. So let's go ahead and look up what that is. Unreal CPP set component, because these are components inside of the actor, location. It might actually just be set component. Well, here we have set relative location. So we could use set relative location and get relative location, just as long as we're using both the same. So since these are both on the same actor, since these are both on the same component, the relative location type of thing won't cause any issues. And for those of you who are just joining, what we're doing here is we're attempting to, you can see the countdown timer down there, we're attempting to make an endless runner game in just 1 hour. So we have around 25 minutes left. And so far what we've implemented is we've created a new character. So we're not using the default Unreal Engine character. And we are working on making it so that when you press D, he moves over to the right lane, and when we press A, he moves over to the left lane. So that's what we're working on right now. And the compile is complete, so let's test out if it works. It is currently doing nothing, but I believe we forgot to actually set the inputs. If we search for input here, we forgot to set the default mapping context, the jump action, and the move action. So all of those should be added there, and these are the things that we edited earlier. If we're rushing a little bit due to time, but if anything doesn't make sense, feel free to stop me and I'll explain it. It looks like we're moving forward and backward with A and D instead of left and right. So I'm going to change this from being changing on the x-axis to changing on the y-axis, because I think we got that wrong. So we'll just be setting this to negative lane offset and positive lane offset on the y-axis. And then if we compile that, we should be moving left and right. It also, 500 was moving as a pretty good amount. So I think that might be a little too much when we switch to going side to side. So I'm going to search for, what was it, offset? Lane offset, and I'm going to change it down to maybe like 250. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I mean, even that is still outside the camera, which we could move the camera back a little bit to make, because I feel like it's a good amount of movement. Maybe we could change it down a little bit. If we change this to like, I don't know, 200. We don't have a whole lot of time to refine variables, but there we go. I mean, that looks pretty good. However, I'm noticing that when we let go of, so I'd like it to be I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we have it so that you hold D to stay in the right lane, hold A to stay in the left lane, and you let go of everything to stay in the middle? Or should it be tap D to move over one lane, tap D to move over another lane? So you're just tapping to move between lanes. Maybe tapping to move between lanes instead of holding for each lane. I don't know. So if we do tapping to move between lanes, we could say int lane equals 0, and then -1 will be the left lane and +1 will be the right lane. And then what we do is instead of actually setting the location here, we'd say if it's greater than or equal to 0.9, we're just going to set the lane variable to 1 and lane variable to -1 there and lane variable to 0 here. And then we'll move these location lines to the tick function. So if we can actually use a switch case statement here, switch on lane. And basically this is like an if-else-if ladder like this, but it only works with integers, and you say switch and whatever the variable is, and then you just say case, and then whatever you're checking if it's that. So case -1 is the same as saying if lane is equal to -1. And then we're just going to copy in this line, which is what we do if lane is -1. And then we say break, which is kind of like the closing brace. It says, okay, now you can move on and hop outside of this closing brace. You don't have to check against these other cases here. So then case 0, we want to do what we have here. If the lane is, if we don't have any input, if we're in lane 0, then we want to, ooh, I think I still have it wrong. Let me go back in just a second. This part with the lanes should be fine. If the lane is -1, then we want to set the player to the center lane position minus something. And if the lane is +1, we want to set them to the lane position, which is this middle lane object, plus some. And otherwise, we want to leave them in the exact middle lane position. So I think this part with the lanes is correct. But what we want to do if the movement is greater than or equal to 0.9 is we might want to plus equal the lane to just move it one lane. Currently, I think we're still going to have, well, it'll be fixed, but I think currently what we're going to have is holding to move between the lanes. So if I hold D, it'll be greater than 0.9, so it'll hold me into the right lane. I think that's what we're going to see here. And then if I okay, and then if you, so the movement function doesn't get called unless we have, movement actually changing to 0 or to 1 or -1. It's never getting called to release us back to 0. So we're never going back to the original lane. But that's not a problem if we switch to moving back and forth between lanes. So what we're going to do is if it's greater than 0.9, we're going to have lane equals lane +1. But we don't always want it to be lane +1. We only want it to be lane +1 if lane is 0 or -1. So what we're going to say is basically we can put like a kind of inline if statement here. We're going to say if lane is less than 1, question mark, then we set lane to lane +1. Otherwise, we set lane to simply lane. We just don't change it. So if lane is less than 1, so if it's -1 or 0, lane equals lane +1. Otherwise, lane equals lane, so we don't do anything. And then we're going to do the same thing here. If lane is greater than -1, lane equals lane -1, otherwise lane equals lane. And in the else statement, we're just going to do nothing. This is only if we're pressing it one way or the other. Now, the only issue here is currently, if we hold down the left key, it might push us over both lanes at the same time, whereas we want to lift and press. So if we have that issue, we'll change the settings, and we should be able to resolve that issue. Yeah, so that's what we're seeing here. If we press the left key right now, if we're very short, we can manage to move only one lane. But if we hold it for just a little bit too long, it'll go ahead and snap over both lanes, which we obviously don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that you have to actually release the key in order to switch lanes. So instead of triggering move on where's our function where we set up the it's here at the bottom. Instead of triggering it on triggered, we're gonna do it on when it's ended, or I think when it's released. Release is what it's called. So now when the key is up, when you let go of the key, now it'll trigger. So you have to actually let go and then press down again and let go again in order to switch between lanes, I think. Okay, released is not it. Maybe it's completed. I can't seem to get auto. Oh, wait, there it is. Okay, auto complete for that. So it looks like it's completed. So now when you press down D and then let go of D, it'll move you one lane to the right, whichever lane you're in. Unless you're all the way to the right, in which case it obviously won't do anything because you can't move right more. Okay, still now it's not moving at all because I don't know, maybe it's not completing. I think we need to change the input type of our movement input. So if we look at our movement action, it's an axis 1D. It probably doesn't ever fire the completed function. So we might we might just want to add in a little bit of a debounce, you know, so it just can't immediately move over, you know. So if you hold it for a whole second, then it does move over both lanes. But if you only hold it for a half second, then it just, you know, doesn't move anymore. We could add that, or we could add a check to see if it's been up and then back down. Let's go ahead and do that. I think that's a better long-term solution. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if if D, for example, says D is to move to the right. So if D is down, then we go ahead and move over one, and then we wait until D's up and then down again before we can move to the right again. So basically, here's where we're checking if D is down, right? If it's greater than or equal to 0.9, and then we need to also check if on basically the last frame, the last time this like tick was run or something like that, D was up. So that means that we're going to need to record last frame movement. We're going to need to record the last frame, the value of movement on the last frame, or the last time that move was called. So we're going to set this to we also need to change this one out of being completed to being triggered. We're going to set last frame movement to be movement right at the end. And obviously we need to actually create this variable. So I'm going to create a float last frame movement. And basically, yeah, so after this, and so then what we want to do here is say if it's greater than 0.9 and last frame movement was less than, I don't know, 0.1 or 0.3. So if we're all the way to the right and last frame, it wasn't all the way to the right. So we haven't been holding it. And then we'll copy this and we'll do the exact same thing, except having it be greater than minus 0.3. Yeah, that looks good. So now we're checking, we're storing the movement on the last frame so that we can make sure that we aren't holding it to move over 2 lanes. So we're always letting go of movement, which will put it back down to 0 before we actually do it over. Okay, we can't move all the way to the left now, but we can move between these 2 lanes. So we can't move into the leftmost lane. Why is that? Presumably something with this going left. So if it's less than minus 0.9, the exact opposite of this, that may be a case statement. Does -1 work as a case? I'm not sure. I don't actually know if I've ever tried that, but we might as well be safe and set this to 0, 1, 2. And then we could say if lane is less than 2, lane +1, and here if lane is greater than 0, lane -1. So now we've just changed it, instead of being -1, 0, 1 to being 0, 1, 2. Not sure if that's the issue, but I don't know if I've ever tried a switch case statement with a 0 there. So let's see. Okay, and now we can't move all the way over to the right. So it's probably a different issue. I wonder if whatever movement, for some reason, we're starting starting in the wrong, well, we're starting in the wrong lane because I changed this so that now 0 is the leftmost lane. That makes sense. But we can't get all the way over to lane 2. So if lane is less than 2, then lane plus 1. That makes sense. Interesting. Was less than 0. Yeah, this looks pretty good to me. Oof, we're getting really low on time. So I'm trying to think what's best to do here. We have, let's see, the switch case. We have situations. I think we're gonna save jump for later and not have it be a part of our minimum viable product that we're making tonight. I think if we can fix this, then maybe get some obstacles going in a very limited amount of time, then we would be in pretty good shape. And we'll see how well we do on our 1 hour challenge, and then we'll move on to other stuff that we have planned for later tonight. So, right, what could be wrong here? We're checking. Let's just see, like, what if we let it go a little further? What if we like broke through? So now it could go up to another lane out, to thinking it's another lane out, or thinking it's another lane too low. Let's just see what happens if we do that. Right, so basically what I said is, oh, well, now you can go 1 lane more in this direction and 1 lane more in this direction. Except that since we only have cases for setting the original lanes, it won't actually do any movement. We also need to actually probably print out the what the lane is. That'll let us see what's going on. So a way that you could print this out to the log in Unreal, but there's actually something else you can do, which is printing it to the screen. So what you do is you say if G-engine, and that just makes sure that this never runs in the actual game. Once you build the game, there's no G-engine. So then you want to say G-engine, I forget exactly how this would, G-engine print on screen message or something like that. Let me Google it. Unreal CPP G-engine print to screen. I think it's print to screen. Print to screen using C++. Yeah, basically this is what we're doing here. G-engine add on screen debug message. So you check if G-engine so that you don't get an error in the built game because there's no G-engine there. Then add on screen debug message. You can set the color to whatever you want. So there's obviously all the standard F colors like F color : red, and then you put whatever you want in here. So I'm gonna have this text be %D, which means I'm adding a decimal parameter after this, and then after this I'm just gonna add lane. So the %D gets swapped out for the value of lane. Now for string it's %S, for float it's %F. Just these different values, which you those are just the little like shorthand for the substitutions there. Okay, and now I put text around this, which I shouldn't have. %D, yeah, just yeah. So the text macro, maybe that's a story for another day. But basically, if you're doing text, then does it not work? Can you not do substitutions here? Let me just try one %F. I don't know what to see. It's doing the highlighting, so VS Code obviously knows what I'm doing here, but I'm not sure if maybe you can't print to screen. You can't use that notation for print to screen. Interesting. What if we just try? We probably should have just used the regular log at this point because obviously print to screen is giving us some trouble. But yeah, let's just use the regular log. We'll get back to this. We have very limited time here. So the regular log, UE log, and you say log temp, which is just the general log that most things go into. Warning, that changes the color, so error is red, warning is yellow, and debug or something is white. And then we say text. Inside we can put our little shorthand %D to say we're adding a decimal parameter after this, or not a decimal parameter, an integer. After this, why is it D? I think it's D for integers, but I don't know why. Unreal, well, it's not just Unreal, this is general C++ notation, %D. I don't know, we'll look up that later, maybe. Okay, but it successfully ran, so let's go ahead and back here. And obviously this is not on the screen, but it'll give us it in the little log there. which is if we break out of our character, then we can press the backtick key to pull up the log. The first time you press the backtick, it goes to the console, and then it pulls up the log. And then if we dock this, in the layout, then we can go back into our character with F8 to repossess our character, and now we can see. Okay, so when we hold it, it's changing the lane consistently, but for some reason, when we press A again, when we're at 0, it's not going any further. And same with D, it's not going any further than 1, even though we explicitly told it that it could go as far as 3 or whatever up here. So we want to go back to checking if lane is less than 2 and if that's greater than 0. And we want to, yeah, why? So once we've moved one way, it's not letting us move any further. So I'm thinking maybe, picture this. This is only triggered if we not when we drop the input back to 0, but only when we move the input to either 1 or -1. So once we've already moved it up to 1, it doesn't go back down to 0 for us to move it up to 1 again. I think that could be the issue. I wonder if there's an e-trigger event for like anything. So like when it's triggered or released, like an all-inclusive case. So I'm just going to search Unreal e-trigger event. And then we can search for, obviously, yeah, look for this for ongoing, canceled, started, completed, maybe ongoing. If we check ongoing and we call move whenever ongoing is whenever anything is happening with it, perhaps that would work. This is eating into our time a lot here, but hopefully we'll at least be able to get the player moving between his lanes on this, and maybe we'll continue next week. Okay, now it doesn't do anything. Okay, so what? Let's say we set it back to triggered. We need to change what triggered means if we want to use triggered. So, triggers plus down, hold, and release. Okay, so if we change the triggers from whatever default is, I don't even know, to hold, or let's see, what does hold say? Once it's remained held for a certain time. No, probably down. Well, we want it to be up or down. That's the thing. We could do released. What about pulse? It fires in an interval in seconds while input is actuated. I'm not sure if that's what we want. Let's try released. See what happens if we do it after it's released. Okay, now it's just always zeros. Let's just try pressed. And I'm assuming that's what the default is. Trigger event : : So we want triggered. I think. Oh, did I forget to compile it? I think I forgot to compile it. That could be part of the issue. Yeah, so we want, let's see what happens currently. Okay, yeah, so now it's only happening the once when we do it. But I think it's not going back down to 0 because it only goes back down because it never triggers when it goes back down to 0. So maybe we need to have another function. Here we go. We need to have another one that says when move action is completed or something like that. Or maybe just when move action isn't pressed at all, we just want to automatically reset it. Here, what about in the tick function, can we get the value of that if... Can we get the value of move action at a given time? I don't think we can. Right, so the issue that we're having is basically this. It only triggers when we're changing the movement axis to 1 or -1. It never triggers when the movement goes from 1 back down to 0. So we never let go. It never thinks we let go until we press another key. That's the issue. And I'm not sure exactly how to solve this issue because we need, like, presumably, like, one of these options in down, hold, like, presumably one of these options is correct for our use case, and some code will work with it, but I'm not sure exactly what that combination is. So that's definitely going to require some more research. Triggering after one or more processing ticks. An event has occurred that has begun trigger evaluation. Trigger is still being processed. Trigger has been canceled. Okay, so what? Yeah, we could go back to the idea of triggering another function when it's completed. Let's try that. And when it's completed, we want to say stop moving. We create a function called void a runner : stop moving. And we can copy this, I guess. And then inside of this, we simply set movement to 0. Not sure if this is going to work, but it might. Just might. Let's paste this in, void stop moving with 2 minutes on the clock. Our goal is simply to get our player character moving between the lanes successfully before our time runs out. And yeah, maybe we'll continue this next week. Let me know what you guys think, if you'd like to see that or not. Movement equals 0. Why doesn't it like? Oh, that's not a global variable. That's literally just a variable in there. Movement, we want to change this to a global variable so we can edit it across multiple functions. So let's create a float movement. Actually, we just want to set last frame movement, I think. Last frame movement, because last frame movement is the one that's killing us, because we're trying to make it 0.3 in that range of negative 0.3 to 0.3 is like sort of the reset range. So we need to change the last frame movement to 0, and then that'll allow the movement function to check and see, oh, last frame we were in the actual close to 0 range, and we'll be fine. Last use of undeclared. I accidentally deleted this, so that obviously caused an error. Now, with 1.5 minutes left on the clock, we're going to see if we can complete this back and forth movement system. All right, play. There we go. Easy stuff. Switching between the lanes, and now we can switch between all 3 lanes. So we still have 1 minute left. What else can we get done? Forward movement, perhaps. In the tick function, if we were to add a, we've already used the set player location, or set actor. We've already used the set component location, set relative location function. We want to actually set the whole actor's location. So we can, since we're on this script, we can actually just run the set actor location function, and it knows we're talking about the self actor by default. So set actor location, get actor location, plus, and then we want to create an f vector with, we discovered that the x-axis was forward. So let's imagine we're creating a variable speed, and then we'll be moving forward by speed times delta time, which is this variable that's included here. I'll explain all of this in 1 second. I just want to see if we can get this compiled and running before our last 10 seconds are up. And we got an error, so we're not gonna, oh, I forgot to actually declare the speed variable. So yeah, I don't think we're gonna make it. That's 0 seconds. We've hit the end of our countdown time. So let's just finish up this function that we're working on currently. If we run it, it's not moving. That's fine. Basically, let's go through this a little more carefully now. What we want to do is, if we change this back to a speed variable and create a speed variable back here, which should be a public variable that we can edit, we're going to create a float speed, and this is just going to be how fast we're moving. Let's set it to, I don't know, 1,000, just so we can see if it's working. If we make it super fast, it'll be obvious whether it's working or not. And then what we're doing is we're saying set every frame, right? So this is every single frame. Get the actor and move it forward based on, because we're saying get actor location plus something. So wherever we were, we're going to go ahead and add on a certain amount, and that amount is going to be the whatever speed we're going multiplied by the delta time, which is the time between the last frame and the current frame. So if it's been 1 second, because we're moving at 1 frame per second, then we would move speed. which is currently at 1000. So that would mean that every second we're moving 1000 units. And if this is a fast computer and we get 1000 frames in 1 second, then each time, delta time would only be 1/1000th. So we would only be moving 1/1000th every single frame, which would end up with us still moving 1000 every second. So multiplying it by delta time makes it frame rate independent, so we're always moving the same amount regardless of how long it takes for a frame to generate. If it takes forever for a frame to generate, then we just move more to catch up with where we should be. And if it takes, if the frame generates super fast, we only move a little bit. So we can switch between the lanes. The moving forward still doesn't seem to be working. And with our speed set to 1000, I'm not sure if that... Wait, did our compile fail? Let's compile again. Speed times delta time, Speed is edit anywhere. So if the compile succeeds, we should have the speed variable in here. And we do, okay. So maybe I just missed compiling again. Okay, we've left our player, we've left our main player behind. So I think what we want to do is, attach these. I think forgot to actually connect these components to like the root core of our player. So the root core of our player is moving onward, and the camera seems to be attached to it, but it's leaving the mesh and the middle lane things behind. So, and I know we're a little over our hour here. We did not succeed in creating this game, but I just want to wrap up a few loose ends here, and then we can move on. So what we want to do is, and we may continue on with this game on a future stream. So what we want to do is go to we want to go to the constructor function here and get the connection going. So we want to run, I believe it's follow camera attach to component, and then we want to have whatever component we're attaching to, but we also want to have a root component. I think it creates a root component by default, so we can just say attach to component root component. Then we'll do the same thing with the mesh attach to component root component. And so basically when we move the when we run the set actor location, basically what it does is it sets the root location. It sets the location of the root component. So if these aren't attached to that component, then these just stay where they are. But now if we attach them, they should move along with it. And it was moving pretty fast. We may want to decrease that speed as well. Compiling. Okay. We have some errors with the attach to component function. Too few arguments to call, expected at least 2, have 1. Interesting. So what is it expecting? It's expecting the scene component to attach it to, and some attachment rules. Interesting. So we need to create some attachment rules, which would basically just create standard attachment rules and do that. So let's look up that attachment transform rules from Unreal Engine. I think this is probably included by default, so we're just gonna create a new, we're just gonna say f attachment transform rules equals a new f attachment transform rules, and then we'll put this in here, rules, and we'll do the same thing. We can use the same rules since we're not changing any of the rules for these other ones as well. Let's see if that works. We're just creating a new rule set with whatever the default rule set parameters are, and we're just slapping that across all 3. Did not work. So we probably won't end up doing that. Okay, we had an error with creating that. Oh, okay. So this is, it requires a parameter to create it. And okay, I don't think this is, I don't recall having to do this before for attaching attaching components. So I think something else is amiss here. Let's say we change things up a little bit here. Let's go ahead and make the middle lane the root component. I think if we just run set root component to middle lane, now the middle lane will be the root component. And we may be able to actually find an instance of this in our like character.cpp that we could sort of imitate. Let's check if we can find anything about what they do to attach these components together. Let me just search for attach. Oh, it's setup attachment. It's not attached to components. So that could be something completely different. Okay, so setup attachment, and then since we're setting the middle lane as the root component, it should be fine the way it is. So now the middle lane is going to go up here, be the root component, and the camera and the mesh will be attached to it, I think. Or maybe it just did that kind of implicitly and it didn't actually show it. That's not good. What if we don't actually make this the root component, but instead we just attach middle lane to the root component, same as everything else. Set up attachment root component. Let's see if that works. It did not work. Did not work. Hey, we can still switch lanes though as we zoom off and leave ourselves behind. Okay, okay, middle lane is attached to a root component. Let's go back to making the middle lane the root component, and then let's go ahead and explicitly say camera is going to be attached to middle lane, and mesh is also going to be attached to middle lane. I kind of wonder if camera should be attached to mesh. Let's do that. Mesh will be attached to middle lane, and we're going ahead and camera setup attachment to mesh. Excellent. Now we should have a good hierarchy. Let's see if it works. Still no. So our camera obviously isn't moving. I wonder what else is and isn't moving. So if we use F8 to break out of our character, then we can look for our character in the inspector, BP under 0. He's moving along, and then we can see which components are and aren't moving. So that's weird. The middle lane is, yes, the mesh obviously is moving. The camera, dude, where does it think the camera is? It does not think the camera doesn't, I think the camera isn't following. Well, obviously the camera isn't following because we're seeing it out of the camera that wasn't following. Interesting. So we have an attachment, but we're not seeming to follow. Let's Unrail CPP connect component to other component. Let's parent component to other component. Create and attach a component inside of another, basically. That looks like what we're trying to do here. Okay, that's in Blueprint. Okay, but that's just what he's asking. So, create default subobject. And then this is just okay. This doesn't look very helpful. And interesting. Anyone else in chat? Yeah, there are two. There are two. So the I wonder what the issue is here. Setup attachment doesn't seem to be working. I would like to wrap this up before we move on, just so we don't leave any major loose ends, even if we do hope to come back to this. Set root component to middle lane. This is interesting because in here, let's close this and reopen it just in case it hasn't refreshed the inspector. But in there, if we look at it, the hierarchy doesn't seem to be preserved. It should be, okay, we're still running the game instant. It should be the mesh and then, or the middle lane, and the mesh is a child of that, and the camera is a child of that, but it's not respecting that at all. So something is not quite right. Maybe set parent. I think there might be a set parent function as well. I'm not sure. I could be confusing this with a different thing. So let's see if we run set parent, if that's a thing. Unreal how to set parent component CPP. All right, that failed. Let's check the log. Yeah, there's no set parent function. That's a scam. But there is one, because we're finding one right here. Set, well, what is, no, this is some random other class. Components changing parent. Yeah, so it says setup attachment here. I'm quite confused, because this setup, before the setup attachment has basically done a whole parenting thing where it just connects that to the middle lane and has it be as a child, and then when we move one and the other, it works. So yeah, this is unexpected, and it compiles and everything. It just doesn't quite actually do anything with it, and it doesn't do the hierarchy here, which is very, very odd. Set root component middle lane. Yeah, this is, if we can find another, one of these scripts that actually does it, then that obviously, then we could see, what's going on here. Let's check this out. The character boom, so we create the like the camera boom, for example, and then we set up an attachment to the root component. Very good. And the follow camera, we set up an attachment to the camera boom. So yeah, what is the difference here between these, other than the fact that it's just saying root component instead of the actual name? I don't know, because the root component at that point, since we've set the root component, it should just be a reference. Root component should basically be the same as saying middle lane, since we've done set root component. Let's just run this. Well, we actually aren't really interested in running it. We're interested in checking out what it looks like here, which is still exactly the same. So, root component equals capsule component. Wait, so is set root component? I don't know, because it's not giving us an error, but perhaps sometimes, you get these kinds of things where it's a variable instead of a function, and it's a little confusing. Just watching a lovely stream on a Wednesday morning. Thank you. Compile complete. Let's check in here, see if anything better has happened. There we go. At least it looks how it should. Mesh and follow camera are both under this. However, obviously the camera is still not moving along, but I do feel better about the fact that we are actually seeing it looking proper. So now I'm trying the whole stacking thing, right? Where we set mesh, where we set camera under mesh, which is under the other one. Ooh, that was weird. I've never had that happen before. We're just like dragging it around. Let's reload this. Okay, we still are not having this like parented properly. I don't know. I might have to look into this more later. Because yeah, it's odd. It's odd. The camera just won't really follow that. We could do a whole like spring arm setup, which is basically what they have in the character component, but you should be able to do it just without actually doing the spring arm, just having the camera explicitly parented to the mesh. One thing that we could do is cut out the camera in the CPP file and just add a camera in Blueprint, because we don't really need to do anything with the camera in the script. And if we don't need to do anything with the camera in the script, the camera doesn't need to be in the script. The camera could just be in the Blueprint. So it's tacky, but we've got to do something here to resolve this situation. No more camera. Then we add a camera. Just a regular camera, parent it to the mesh, which is what we're attempting to do. And then we just position it as we want. Yeah, we were having some weird stuff with the camera. Like earlier, we were having a positioning issue where it didn't seem like it was positioned the same way. I wonder if this will change that. Boom, beautiful. Obviously, we might want some not exactly having the camera in like exactly on the player like that, but for a quick, yeah, it's looking pretty good. I don't know if I would say that, but at least you know we got something done. We got something done, and we have frameworks for more. For jump, all we have to do is implement jump. We've already have the movement down for that. The key press is down for that. But we have we have an hour's work. Well, it's turned into almost an hour and a half, but we have something going, and I'll hopefully look into that issue. And yeah, maybe next. What do you guys think? Would you between we're gonna do something a little bit more like last stream now, but between last stream and this stream, if you guys were there on both, which would you say was more enjoyable? What we're gonna do now is, you guys have probably seen this Infinite Craft game if you have been at all on YouTube in the last, I don't know, week, month, maybe. It's from this guy, Neil.fun. He makes a whole bunch of games like this, and somehow every single one of them is kind of a smash hit, and well, it's working now. Thank you. Hopefully that was not disconnected for that long. I guess I'll have to check the recording for that. Anyway, we have sound now. Ghost. What we are attempting to do is we are attempting to use Infinite Craft to create an Arduino, which, as far as I know, has not been attempted. Maybe it has. I don't know. But we have created a sizable library of items, including the word library. And yeah, we're trying to get to something Arduino related. So we have some closer things like paper, gold, money, and perhaps, yeah, we need to somehow combine these things, rich, to make richer, richest, to make something related to technology and therefore Arduino. Richest, sand, ooh, here we go. We can make glass with sand and fire, maybe? There we go. Glass, stone, ooh, water and lava made stone. That could be very helpful. Stone plus earth makes rock. Stone and rock. Boulder. Mountain. Stone and dust. Okay, so we have glass. Glass could be useful. Glass. How can we get from glass to something technology related? Glass and paper. Window. Ooh. Yeah, earlier I mentioned if we could get to the Windows operating system, multiple windows. How do we get from one window to many windows? Aquarium, that's nice. Fish, shark, aquarium. Window. Richest plus window. Bill Gates. Oh, there we go. Bill Gates plus Windows got to be Windows. Okay, Microsoft plus Windows got to be Windows. Okay. Window plus error. Crash. Okay. Microsoft's in the technology space, so that's good. But we need to get like an actual computer. That's nice that we could get Bill Gates though. Bill Gates plus money or richest. Bill Gates plus North America. It's just Microsoft. How do we make Windows or a computer out of Microsoft? Microsoft plus Crash becomes Windows. Okay. So now we need to get Windows, not Windows 10. We need to get an actual computer that would run Windows. Windows plus paper. Origami. Okay. Windows. How can we get an actual physical computer out of this Mickey Mouse? By combining it with gold. By combining it with money. Windows 10 Pro. Okay. By combining with tax. By combining taxidermy. Okay. Fine. Combining it with a fine. Windows plus. We need metal. Honestly, we need metal so we can combine and make a computer. I think like Windows plus metal or something like that could potentially get us. Mic's still working, right? I just want to double check on that since we are having some issues. If we could combine like Windows with like metal or something like that, it could potentially give us. Okay, we got a house. That's nice. A dustbin. Windows plus dustbin. Recycling. Nice. Okay, we somehow got Windows 11. And yeah, okay. So we have a house. Houses are sometimes made out of metal, right? House plus house becomes a town. And if we add more houses, it becomes a city. What if we combine a couple of cities and we get a big city or like a metropolis? Yeah. Megalopolis. Megatropolis. So I guess we know that Megalopolis is smaller than Megatropolis. Getting into some deep stuff here. Okay, so binoculars are made out of glass and metal. So is a telescope. Telescope plus window equals spy. Why is this guy just chilling here? I don't know. He's stuck. If we combine two telescopes, we get an observatory. Astronomer. Okay, so we're getting into more technology related professions, which could be good. Oh, galaxy. Okay, universe. Combining these two, we get cosmos. Interesting. So we have some very large scale words now. What happens if we put the universe in a dustbin? We get a black hole. Wormhole. Time travel. Time machine. I wonder what some of these combinations are going to be. Windows plus time machine. What does that even mean? I don't know. Clock plus Windows. Time. Two clocks together. Well, we have a concept of time. The future. Future could be good. What if we combine Windows with future? Okay, Windows 10 is not the future. Future plus dustbin. Recycle. Okay, that makes sense. Stone. Statue. Okay, I don't know how that makes sense, but dude, these transitions are not making sense right now. But hey, we have Sphinx and Pyramid. We also have statue plus America would probably be like Statue of Liberty. Or just Liberty itself. Okay, paper plus future. Newspaper. More future. Time travel. Okay. Paradox. Paradox plus Windows 11. Crash. Okay, what else can we add in here? All right, so we need to find an actual computer from this, which we have clock, but clock doesn't really work with us much. What else can we create here? Ash and paper. Fire. Okay. Wow, we have quite a selection here. We need to focus more towards the technology side to ship plus clock. Okay. We have an astronomer here. It's kind of like a scientist. What can we... This is a tough one. Windows. So we have Windows. We have Microsoft. How can we go from that to some piece of physical technology, like a laptop, computer, that type of thing? Monopoly. Astronaut. Interesting. Astronaut plus time machine. Okay. Got some interesting stuff there. Wrapping paper. Gift. Oh. Gift. Combine two gifts together to make a present. Okay. What if Windows was a gift? Okay, that's just a present. Bill Gates combined with himself as a billionaire. What if we make a billionaire a little bit bigger with rich? No? 2 billionaires make a trillionaire. 2 trillionaires make a billionaire? Odd. Not sure how that works. But if we... Astronaut. Okay, astronaut and Santa. If Santa was a billionaire. What else do we have here? These city type things could potentially be useful. What if we combine Windows in with one of them? No, we just get Microsoft. House, city, makes town. House and fire. Fireplace. Warmth. Sun. Ooh. Solar. Sun. Okay, so that's interesting. Cruise. What am I thinking here? We could maybe make more. America plus fire equals freedom. Ooh, fireworks, that's nice. Explosion. Make more. Make more things. Oh, we could get some American cities probably if we combine one of these city things with America, like New York, for example. City. What else? What could we get out of New York? Can we get any technology? We could probably get skyscraper or something if we combine like house with New York. New York with New York. House with New York. Empire State Building. Okay. Fire. Fire. Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense. Terror. Hell. Wow. Okay. It's getting dark here. We now have Godzilla and King Kong. Okay, that's interesting. We need New York plus fireworks. Okay, 4th of July. Not sure if that helps. How can we combine these? Dust and rain. Mud. Double up on the mud. Could potentially get something. Clay. Now we can make a house from the ground up. Not that it helps it. Or we can make pottery. Flower. Lily. Pond. Lake. And there we go. How can we get something technology related? I feel like it could have something to do with future. We already tried future paper. Richest windows. Bookshelf plus windows. Lens. Windows 10 Pro with like some of these things are very, very long and specific and odd. Lens plus windows. Camera. Ooh, camera. Okay. Camera plus windows. Snapchat for Windows. Snapchat for Windows 10. Okay, so we have Snapchat and camera. Maybe we could get phone. No, maybe not. Photographer. Photo. Okay. Picture. Okay, we're getting some good stuff here. Okay, so camera plus what else? We already did camera plus Windows, I think. Yeah, that was somehow Snapchat. But if we could somehow combine something between Windows, Snapchat, and camera, we ought to be able to get a phone. From there, a computer. I'm thinking. Mud plus camera. Okay, that was odd. We have rich camera. Paparazzi. Okay. Celebrity. That could be useful. Celebrity plus Windows. Well, obviously, Bill Gates. Celebrity plus Snapchat. Snapchat filter. Instagram. See, we have... Alright, Instagram plus Snapchat. Well, that's probably going to be social media, but that's close. Chat. We have just the word chat. Where is Snapchat? Now we're gonna have to start searching because we have such a library of things here. Instagram plus Snapchat. Okay, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. Chat plus. What about chat plus camera? Selfie. Okay. Selfie plus chat. Still just selfie. Oh, selfie plus Windows. That's got to be good. Let's see it. No. Accidentally just combined two Windows together. Selfie plus Windows. Dude, how is that Windows 10? How is that not a computer? Windows plus chat. Skype. See, we have a ton of different apps and services, but combining them is just giving us name combinations that we could use for them. Chat plus Skype. Gossip plus Instagram. Influencer. Influencer plus camera. That's just selfie. I wonder if we could get influencer plus Windows 10 or something like that. What were we looking? Yeah, we need Windows. I still think Windows is likely going to be the key. Windows and what? We already tried Windows and selfie. That didn't get us anywhere. Windows and influencer. Okay, I don't think Bill Gates was an influencer. Gossip and Windows. Windex. Okay. How can we not get phone? We need to get like iPhone and then iPhone plus Windows would be computer or something like that. I think. See, like how do you combine Snapchat and Windex and get Snap Windex? Like what is that? What is Snap Windex? Like what does that even mean? Narcissus. Daffodil. Okay. Windex plus Daffodil equals Daisy. Imagine Daisy plus Windows. Okay, I was hoping for Mario or something like that. Photo of Spy. I don't know why Spy is still just chilling there. Wedding, marriage. All right, how can we get rumor? News. What about news plus Windows? How is everything related to Windows just end up being Windows 10? We need, yeah. I don't know. This is proving to be a tough one. Wedding plus Snapchat. No. Yeah, I mean we have quite a selection here, but we've not gotten any hardware technology products. However, we are at past 2 hours now, so I think I'm gonna have to call it. If any of you guys have any feedback on whether last stream or this stream was better, I would definitely love for you to drop that in the chat. I'm gonna have to check if the audio was wrong because somewhere the audio cut out. And it's obviously back on now, but I don't know for how long it was cut out. So hopefully that wasn't too much of an influence. But yeah, that will be all for tonight. Thank you for tuning in, and and see you next week, Wednesday, 9 p.m.